Minnesota Vikings had a great come-from-behind victory here in Week 13, and now they get to host the Atlanta Falcons and their former quarterback, Kirk Cousins. My name's Tyler, here with my brother Ryan, and we're going to break down this homecoming matchup for Kirk Cousins and the Atlanta Falcons and the Minnesota Vikings. But before we do that, we do have a goal of getting to 6,000 subscribers by the end of the year. So if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, leave a like and a comment. Let us know who you think will win this game and why. So, Ryan, kind of looking at the schedule here overall, I get why Sunday Night Football is the Chargers versus the Chiefs, but I am kind of surprised they didn't flex this game specifically to Monday Night Football because there's a lot of playoff implications in this game. And also, too, then the sentimental reason for Kirk Cousins coming back to Minnesota, team that he left now to Atlanta Falcons. And based off today's performance, y'all can have him back. No, I'm just joking around. Kirk Cousins has been fun to watch. Today obviously wasn't the day that he was wanting or any of the Falcons fans were wanting, especially too because it's another game that we blew. But I think though that this would be a much better matchup here, in my opinion, than the 4-8 Cincinnati Bengals versus the 5-7 Dallas Cowboys. But I digress. This game specifically, though, Falcons coming off a tough loss, as I mentioned as well. Game that they should have won defensively, played great. They had 5 sacks, 50%. It was 50% of the sack total that we had going into the game. And so added on that right there. So coming off the bye, they really addressed that, but must not have addressed anything offensively when it comes to their offense during the bye week. But Minnesota struggled at first against Arizona, but found a way to win. Sam Darnold connected. Aaron Jones, I think a game to remember, especially with how it started, but glad that he got the game-winning touchdown as well, especially too with those fumbles because he's had a great year. Ryan, I want to throw it over to you. What are your kind of thoughts on both of these teams? Because we were watching both of these games going on today. What are some of the key factors you think both teams need to come out to be victorious?
Yeah, well, the one thing I thought that was interesting about the Falcons game was I went into that game and I did pick the Chargers to win, but I thought the Chargers would be more dominant in the trenches than they were. Like they definitely got after Kirk Cousins a little bit, but not near as much as the Falcons got after Justin Herbert. You guys actually did a pretty good job in the run game as well. I believe you held them.
We held them like
17 carries.
Yards. Yeah,
17 carries for 56 yards or 58 yards. Sorry, my eyesight's bad. I can't quite see that. But it was definitely a 5-something. And so like that's a pretty good stat line there as well. And so I felt like you guys definitely at the very least had a decent mentality shift over the bye in the trenches. And I definitely think you're going to need that. This Vikings team, I think that is where they win, is in the trenches. And especially on that defensive side of the ball, Brian Flores does a great job with this defense of getting after the passer. They definitely moved Kyler Murray off his spot a few times. And I think with Kirk Cousins being more of that traditional pocket passer, it's going to be really interesting to see if Brian Flores can throw some wonky blitz at him and maybe overload one side and get some pressure. Because unlike Kyler Murray, Kirk Cousins won't necessarily be able to avoid that. And so
no, not like he won't necessarily, like he won't be able to avoid that.
Well, yeah.
Catcher in the pocket,
yeah. And so that is something I felt that the Chargers, like, while they have a good pass rush and they do a good job on that defense side of the ball, it is a little bit more traditional of like the edge rushers get after the passer, the defensive tackles stop the run. Like, there's not a whole lot of like high level minutia going on that defensive side of the football. So it's going to be a fun matchup. I think this is a must-win game for the Falcons. The Bucs are, I think, nipping at your heels for the division. Even though you guys did beat them twice, they are still also 500, I believe 500 now. Yeah. And so you guys definitely need to win this one. And after that, I think your schedule is fairly easy coming back from this one. You go Raiders, Giants, then you have Commanders, then the Panthers to close out the season. And then like on the flip side, the Vikings, while it hasn't been the prettiest the last couple of weeks, definitely been able to get wins against Chicago, Tennessee, Arizona. Jacksonville was 12-7. Indianapolis was 21-3 or 21-13 in a very ugly game. And so like it almost does remind me a little bit of the Chiefs, where it's like they're like barely winning these games against mediocre teams, but they're just consistently winning games, and that is difficult, I think, for a team like the Falcons, who is a 500 team. this is the type of team where, yeah, it's going to be close, but then at the end, they're going to get one big play and kick a field goal to win as time expires. And that to me, I think is kind of how like it's going to be a close game. So,
well, and I was thinking about that a lot today, and I'll get to Kirk Cousins here in a second because I know Vikings fans are curious to hear my thoughts on this. But it's one of the differences, though, like in that example right there that you said, where like somehow they can get a late touchdown or set up a late field goal, and it's like it helps to have Justin Jefferson, and not even just Justin Jefferson though, but then Jordan Addison or then T.J. Hawkinson,
Jalen Naylor.
And that's something that the Falcons are missing. The thing I was sitting here today and like. And as I said, I'll get to Kirk Cousins in a second. But we felt like we were not creative at all on offense. And then at the same time that I think about it, I think it's cool to talk about like, how well Darnell Mooney's doing or like Ray McLeod's story or whatnot. And then but like Drake London's, I think, one of the better receivers in the league. Yes, he's probably a number one at a lot of other places, but he's a big physical receiver. He kind of maybe like reminds me of a Mike Evans-esque type receiver, you know what I mean? Where he can catch these jump balls because of how big he is, but he's not going to have that breakaway speed. Darnell Mooney has been a cool story, yes. Kyle Pitts is turning into a bust. I don't know. I don't think he had any catches today at all. Just seems lost. But there was just nothing really creative, I feel, in our offensive system. It felt like every first down we were going to run it with Bijan to try and get it in second and manageable. And then when we would do that, maybe we'd run it again, but then like we might get stuffed like 3rd and 3, and then like we're in a premier or like we have to pass the ball now. And then with Kirk Cousins' inability to move, it kind of set up those situations where you need a hot route. We don't have time really to take a deep chance. Mm-hmm. And so to your point with Minnesota, I think Brian Flores is going to be like, yeah, no, we're going to send 5 probably every time.
Yeah,
because we're going to have seven guys block. So which means there's just going to be 3 guys that can go out for routes. And it puts a lot of pressure on Kirk Cousins to hit those guys. And so because if we try and line up 4 guys and then like have Bijan in the backfield, 4 wide receivers or like 11 personnel, so to say. Now Brian Flores is going to be like, all right, like fine, you're going to have to hit your hot route before we can make this change. But we're going to be sending 5-6 guys, consistently because they're always going to have more cornerbacks and more secondary than what we're going to be able to go out there and throw. And it's not like it's not like we can consistently keep burning these guys. Yes, like you go look at Kirk Cousins stats and they're amazing, but against Tampa Bay is the one.
I was going to say he has like almost half his production in those 2 games against Tampa Bay, right?
Half, but like I'm looking at the team passing yards, but he's got 477 in that one game, and we haven't passed 270. We haven't passed 265 outside of that game, and 265 was the other Tampa Bay game. And these are team passing yards to be specific.
Yeah,
so I want to make that clear. So sacks are included. So it's not like we have that game-breaking speed. Like I'm being hyperbolic here, but like a Tyreek Hill, where you can hit that screen pass and he can break it off, or he's just so stinking quick where you can snap the ball, throw it up in the right coverage, like for 30 yards, or like we just don't have that. And so we almost have to methodically work our way down the field. And this is where I'm going to talk more about Kirk Cousins. What really struggled us today is like we couldn't get the ball in the end zone. We got to red zone several times, and then Kirk Cousins made a poor mistake, absolutely, with the second interception, and his first and his third. I don't blame him too much on the fourth. But when you're in the red zone, you have those points. One of the things I was thinking about it is Kirk Cousins can't move at all. So it makes it easier, I think, for teams to have a bend, don't break mentality against us because it's not like our offensive line is super elite. But I bring this up, be like, bring in Michael Penix. At least he can run, and then he can definitely still throw. He's got a cannon of an arm. But give defenses something else to think about, like when we get into the red zone here, because at least we have a dual threat capability. Maybe it'll open things up more with Bijan. But my thing, it just wasn't not really super creative, I feel, when it comes to our offensive playmaking, our offensive production. It feels very repetitive overall. And even too, on top of that, in our last 3 games, so during this 3-game losing streak, I think we only have 3 touchdowns overall. Like we got shutout touchdown wise against the Broncos. We only put up 2 field goals. And then we had a touchdown today against the Chargers. The first one to put points up on the board. But then, like, we had a missed field goal. Younghoe Koo, that's going to be a separate offseason conversation as well, as he's gone through a slump. But it just seems like we just are stagnant now offensively.
And that is, you guys do have a first-time offensive play caller in Zach Robinson. I didn't necessarily.
Sorry.
Wait, what? I didn't necessarily expect it to be perfect. Like, obviously, like, there was the first game of the year that didn't go well against the Steelers, but that's turned into one of the better defenses in the league this year. And so, like, I didn't expect it to be perfect. My concern is, like you said today, it was just very uncreative, like very vanilla. And to me, like, how do you spruce things up? How do you disguise things a little bit more, especially when you have the limitations of a non-mobile quarterback, I'll say, at this point. So
I do want to make a quick correction. We did have 287 passing yards against the Saints, but we lost that game, so I'm not going to count it. No, I'm just kidding. But still, we haven't broken 300 yards other than that Tampa Bay 477-yard game. But back to this, though, I agree with you. It's first-time play caller, yes, but we've got to be more creative. But I also think, though, too, I just don't think we have the skill position players to allow for that. That's why kind of getting into this prediction here, I think it's going to be a really fun matchup watching our Atlanta secondary go up against the receivers here of Minnesota. Because I think we have one of the better secondaries in the league with AJ Terrell, Jesse Bates, Justin Simmons has been playing well. I think our linebacking group's been playing well. Love to see another great performance by our defensive line. That is entirely shocking. That we're at 15 total sacks on the season, and a third of that came in this last game. But I think it's going to be a tough homecoming for Kirk Cousins coming back, and so that's why for me, I want to go with Minnesota here on this one. We've struggled on the road overall, especially in kind of during this losing streak. 2 of our 3 losses here in a row have been on the road, and so I'm going to go with Minnesota on this one, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Minnesota as well. This is the type of game I feel like Minnesota wins 23-20. Falcons make one too many mistakes. Minnesota probably goes down and either puts the game away late or kicks like a last-second field goal to go on top. So I'll say 24-20. Minnesota scores a touchdown and Atlanta can't respond.
So I'll say 24-19. I think we'll still struggle to get the ball in the end zone. I think we'll move the ball against them and get in the red zone, but probably a lot of 30 to 40-yard field goals, I feel, for Younghoe Koo.
Yeah. So I think it's going to be a good one. Minnesota can't sleep on Atlanta, but I do think they're favored going into this one. So let's go ahead. Let's wrap this one up here. We are both taking the Minnesota Vikings. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and like and subscribe. That is the best way to help out the channel. While you're down there, go ahead and leave a comment on who you think is going to come out ahead. Will it be the Atlanta Falcons? Will it be the Minnesota Vikings? And other than that, we'll see you guys next time.